The opportunity, though, in a world where you've got generative AI and other emerging technologies that are dependent on data, has created the opportunity to address the compliance step while also progressing the strategic evolution of the organization, given that both are reliant on that strong data foundation. A very clear focus in our growth strategy under Mteto is developing young talent.
Okay.
And so that bursary program, we've got around about 50 students that we are supporting. There's always a plan around what you want to achieve. But that plan is always based on assumptions that are going to prove to be incorrect, which means the plan's are going to have to change. Part of what we try and make sure that our people understand and the businesses we work with understand is that plan is a direction to move in. But we've always got to be open and honest about what's actually going on.
Welcome to the latest edition of ITWeb TV. My name is Admire Moyo. Today we are joined in the studio by Jurie Schoeman, who is the managing partner at BSG. Today, Jurie is going to tell us more about BSG, as well as the latest technology trends that BSG is witnessing in the South African market. Welcome to ITWeb TV, Jurie.
Thanks very much, Admire. It's great to be here and nice to see you again.
Awesome. Nice to meet you too again, Jurie. Just for those viewers of ours who do not know what BSG is all about, if you can just briefly introduce BSG, what you guys do, and we just take it from there.
Sure thing, Admire. So, first and foremost, BSG is a purposeful, homegrown South African consulting and technology company. We've been around for 28 years now. The reason why we talk about being purposeful is that we think that technology is an enabler for society and for businesses and for individuals, but it needs to be used in the right way. And so the way that we think about purpose is about bringing about positive change. It's also very centered in the approach that we take to consulting and to technology, because fundamentally for that change to be positive, it needs to be led by the right people. Part of what we'll talk about is businesses and how they're using this technology. Our approach in BSG has always been to make sure that it's business-led change. When BSG started out 28 years ago, it was about connecting business executives and stakeholders with IT or technology stakeholders when they used to speak quite a different language. But that's the fundamental root of what we do as a business, is to bring together people in different roles in organizations to be aligned and agreed around what is it that they actually want to solve for, and how can that best be achieved through technology, especially as technology evolves at such a quick pace.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Jurie. From a consultancy background, I understand you guys deal with a whole lot of companies, especially with the focus on technology. What are the biggest tech trends that you are witnessing in local companies?
Well, they're all the ones that you put as headlines in ITWeb. But it's no surprise around that. I mean, I'd say over the last 5 years, maybe even longer, from digital transformation continues to be a real focus. I think what it means is probably evolving and taking a different shape now, especially because of the evolution of generative AI over the last couple of years. In addition to that, cloud computing, use of data, all of those underpin and enable that digital future to become a reality. We see it powered in different ways across organizations we work with. I think given the transformative nature of their technology and how it can enable businesses to operate very differently, especially at a board level, a lot of the questions that come through to the leadership teams we work with is, what's our GenAI strategy? What are we doing about it? What are our proof points? Almost independent of whatever strategies and existing plans have been in place around it. So part of it is making sense of what's already progressing versus what's being enabled and is new from that technology perspective.
So what you are saying is companies are starting to experiment with these GenAI technologies.
And I think they have been for some time. I think whenever you look at businesses, everyone's on that change curve. Some organizations are very comfortable, and in fact, it's in their DNA to be the leaders, the early adopters for technology. They've got a clear vision. They understand how that kind of technology can enable them to do things better, and they'll almost always be at the forefront of that change. Other organizations, and those are the ones that have been experimenting with these technologies for a number of years now. Others are more comfortable waiting to see how it plays out, more cautious and risk-focused in terms of their approach. And so I think they're the ones that are probably starting to experiment for the first time or on a more significant basis only now.
So as a consultant, what advice would you give to these organizations about bringing in these new technologies into the business?
So while they're new technologies, I think the fundamental principles remain constant. All of these emerging technologies, they're tools or enablers for what you can do, but they're not going to be the answer in themselves.
Okay.
In fact, they obscure that a bit because it feels like there are so many different trends and tool sets and emerging ideas in an already complex world where there's a lot you need to understand within your organizations and externally. So there are a couple of things that we think are really fundamental. The first part is, even if all of these things are changing very quickly, it's very important to slow down and create time to think.
Okay.
Because that thinking time is critical to make sense in your own business. What is it that's guiding you? What's that vision, purpose, strategic imperative that everything must support? When you're clear around that, how does this kind of technology enable it? And that's the positive change part. Because if you're not clear around it, they can actually become distractions where, nobody has infinite time or resources. Everybody's cost constrained. As soon as you start to introduce potentially well-intended, but the things that aren't a fit to that, it actually creates a negative impact in terms of your progress. So the one part is to make sure, be clear around what you're trying to achieve from a business perspective and approach any of these initiatives from that perspective. I think the other part is that if we look at we use Gartner extensively from a research perspective, some really good practical knowledge that they're sharing now is that in the context of that evolution from a technology perspective, organizations that are able to adapt their operating model, their ways of working more quickly than their competitors win. It's very simple. And that means that the organizational culture mindset needs to move towards doing things quickly.
Okay.
But you've got to start with the slow part.
Yeah.
What's most important that you're trying to achieve. Once you're clear and agreed around it, how do you then introduce that speed of delivery? And part of the speed of delivery is learning quickly. It's appreciating that this is what we want to achieve. It's new technology. No one has a high level of certainty around exactly how it'll play out. So set off in a direction very quickly, learn from that, and then apply that learning in the next step.
I understand. Thanks, Jurie. I understand you also work with different companies. I don't know if you are allowed to mention some of your clients. If you can maybe share some practical examples of the companies that are making use of these emerging technologies.
Sure. So I think, if we talk in terms of different organizations and how they're approaching it in different industries, so I'd say first of all the organizations that we work with, regardless of industry, are looking at how they can use these technologies.
Okay.
If we look at the businesses we work with who are in the insurance and investments industry, I'd say there's a common shape and trend there in terms of what they're trying to do. And that's really around how do they get closer to their customers and provide their customers with the right advice and products at the end of the day that they need. Now, where that's particularly important in that industry is because it's typically an intermediated industry. You've got advisors, either tied to the organization or independent, who are dealing with the end customer.
Okay.
The organizations have been very much dependent on those advisors to represent their brand, to understand the needs of their customers, to then help to meet the needs of those customers through the products and offerings that they have. That's one of the areas where generative AI provides a fundamentally different way in order to drive that engagement.
Okay.
I mean, if you think of a lot of the startups and fintechs that have emerged over the last 10 years, in that industry, they've identified the inefficiencies and the gaps between the business and the end customer. And given how slowly change typically happens in those organizations, if you can be innovative and quick, you can actually close one of those gaps in the market and grow a business out of it. So fintech, in the same way, prop tech and various other ways have played out. So in that industry, it's really about how do you arm the advisor with better information in understanding the customer and their needs in order to help them to achieve their longer-term financial wellness. What it also does is arms the organization with a better sense of how those external advisors actually representing their business to the end customer, and a huge amount of insight that goes along with it. If we look from a banking perspective, and we work extensively in that industry, I think from a macro perspective, we know that South Africa is constrained from an overall top-line growth perspective.
Okay.
So growth for organizations won't happen as a result only of the economy growing. It actually requires fierce competition amongst those banks for the existing set of customers and their growing needs over time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jurie. We also understand with the emergence of these new technologies also come fears or challenges. For example, with artificial intelligence, global companies such as Microsoft, I think, even Amazon, they revealed that they are going to be downsizing because of the efficiencies that are being brought by these emerging technologies. Are you also witnessing a similar trend in South Africa whereby companies are kind of downsizing because of artificial intelligence?
We certainly haven't seen that happening so far. And as to whether it will continue to happen, I think depends on a few fundamental points. I mean, the one part is around how you see this technology at an individual basis, because all of us have got responsibilities, the contributions we need to make in the businesses that we're employed by. If the technology fundamentally changes how those jobs can be done, if we haven't adopted individually, then yes, there's going to be risk around that. So at an individual level, people can either be proactive about that or reactive about it.
Okay.
The proactive part is to understand that they're tools. They're very powerful tools that can take on some really complex tasks and do them really well. So the guidance to all of us as people, as humans, is to do the things that the technology can't do.
Okay.
So that's at an individual level. And what we encourage all of our people to do, and anyone that we interact with in terms of the businesses and clients we work with, is to help arm and equip your people to stay ahead of that technology and to make the most of it. And there you're talking about things like critical thinking, judgment, creativity, but don't be surprised by it later on. Get ahead of it. And I think so there's an individual part to it, because if people can create value for the organizations they work with, no one would want to reduce and not have them in their businesses. I think the second part of it is the business approach to using that technology.
Okay.
And if you think of generative AI, I was looking at a few headlines around this last week. There are people that say generative AI is going to transform our lives and make them much easier.
Yeah.
And then there's another viewpoint that generative AI is going to enable people to raise the level of what's considered hard.
Yeah.
And businesses are going to be in the same position. Yes, you can use the technology to automate and to make some existing effort-intensive steps easier to do. And you can use it in order to compete, elevate what you do. And in order to do that, you're going to need great people with great skills to be able to use that technology. Certainly, I haven't come across any organization that said we need to do this in order to reduce headcount.
Okay.
I've come across a number of organizations saying, in doing this, we need to help our people to do their daily jobs more effectively because they're spending hours on manual tasks at the expense of spending time with customers, servicing, helping them, various other things that go along with it.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, Jurie. Just to move away from artificial intelligence, I know at BSG you also do stuff to do with compliance. We understand South Africa has been grey listed. Since the grey listing, I also understand the Reserve Bank is doing a lot to ensure that we are no longer on that list. What are you noticing as BSG in regards to compliance since this grey listing started? Like, what are businesses doing around that?
Yes, I mean, everybody knows that grey listing is bad for business. It makes it harder to do business in South Africa. It raises the risk level of doing business with South Africa, which then requires a high level of return, and all of that is bad for us as a country. It's really good to see the progress that's been made and the very positive signs that will be resolved imminently. But what it has done is it's forced a rethink for organizations that weren't yet in a position to be compliant around how they go about doing that. I mean, grey listing comes down to financial data and transactions. It comes down to data. And data being captured in the right way with the right control points and managed over time. So, in a way, what we've seen is organizations that already had well-established data platforms and a high level of inherent value, where the organization culture was to value data, they had high levels of compliance.
Okay.
Organizations that didn't appreciate data in the same way or weren't as mature in terms of how it gets managed, they had serious compliance gaps and steps that they've had to bring in order to address that. The opportunity, though, in a world where you've got generative AI and other emerging technologies that are dependent on data, has created the opportunity to address the compliance step while also progressing the strategic evolution of the organization, given that both are reliant on that strong data foundation. So we've seen organizations that already had well-established data platforms, they've been able to continue to accelerate their digital transformation journeys with little distraction from a compliance, the end result of grey listing. Others that weren't yet as mature, it's really helped them to accelerate those journeys because they've had to. Either way, I think the overall industry is in a much better position in terms of being aware and prepared to manage data from a compliance perspective, but also from a digital transformation and customer expectations perspective.
But how is this actually impacted like a normal business, this grey listing?
Look, I think what it's probably done is it's created specific priorities from a change perspective around compliance.
Okay.
From an AML perspective and other associated aspects, it's meant that projects and programs have had to be spun up with investment in order to address those pain points. So certainly it's probably distracted a bit from the strategic alternative programs that could have been driven by those funds and with those people in place. Overall, though, those results and I think those efforts have been collectively very successful and effective, hence the imminent shift from us being on that grey list.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, Jurie. Now we want to focus on BSG itself, and we've been talking about various issues. Like looking at your business, like if you can, what does your day look like as the managing partner at BSG? What you do like from the time you wake up until like maybe go?
Sure. I think that there are a few fundamentals in our business, and our people are fundamental first and foremost, and our clients and how we help them follows from that. I think the priority is to make sure that as a leadership team, we're always focused and we're prioritizing the right things. So especially over the last couple of years, what we've paid particular attention to is in this fast pace, we've got to make sure that our teams are doing well.
Okay.
There are a couple of things we use in BSG to get feedback from our people around how they're doing so that we can do that proactively. But it's also very important that we spend time with those teams in a very open and constructive way, understanding what's really happening.
Okay.
Yeah, because and it probably goes along with it's the same elements we talk about in terms of change in the businesses we work with. There's always a plan around what you want to achieve. But that plan is always based on assumptions that are going to prove to be incorrect, which means the plans are going to have to change. Part of what we try and make sure that our people understand and the businesses we work with understand is that plan is a direction to move in. But we've always got to be open and honest about what's actually going on.
Okay.
There's almost a sense of invulnerability around that. If you tell me that this is the plan, then I've got to make sure it gets delivered.
Yeah.
Keep the project green, for example. Research shows that 0.5% of IT projects in the history of the world have been delivered on time, on budget, and achieved the benefits expected. So only 1 in 200 projects. All the rest had a plan at the beginning, that plan didn't work, and it needed an adjustment.
Okay.
So what with our people, first and foremost, because they also work with our clients, is to understand, are things playing out as we'd planned? Because if they're not, make it red. It's a good thing to do. It doesn't mean that you can't do your job or that you're incompetent. It means that all of those things we couldn't control, outside of our direct control, sometimes outside of our influence in the plan, some things proved to be different to what we'd hoped for, probably optimistically, and so we need a new plan. So spending time with our teams, understanding how they're doing, where they're at around it, helping them to identify, because like you would have seen the number of projects that move to amber, and then they stay in amber for a long time, or what gets referred to as watermelon reporting.
Okay.
It looks green on the outside, but it's actually red on the inside. To find that out at the end of a program, or way down the line, is when you get into this long tail where something was supposed to take a year and cost 100 million rand, and instead it takes 4 years and costs 1 billion rand. Getting those fundamentals in place up front. So spending time with our people around it.
Okay.
And then I think also, obviously, spending time with our clients.
Okay.
And that's always our priority. Because understanding what's happening in those organizations, what's most important to them, our role is to help businesses solve their most important problems. So we need to know what that is. We need to spend time with them. We need to make good use of that time.
Okay.
And it's an amazing experience to meet across several organizations with very senior leaders who are prepared to say, look, this is something that I'm struggling to deal with, or how can you help me to do this?
Interesting. Also, just to ask about Teto, I understand he brought into the business like 2022?
Yeah, almost 3 years ago.
Yes. So how has the business evolved since Teto Nyati came into the business?
Yeah, I think it's been fairly fundamental in terms of how the business has transformed and grown since Teto came in, while still being grounded in all the principles, the purpose, the culture, the values that have been inherent in BSG's DNA. What Mteto's really brought into BSG is a very clear strategy and vision for what we can become as an organization.
Okay.
And I think the headline around that is, as a growing business, we're quite proud of being the challenger. Okay. Because let's face it, a lot of organizations don't like consulting companies. No. And their jokes about it and all the rest. We've always done it in our way, and our way happened to be quite different to how almost all other consulting companies operate.
Okay.
And so we position ourselves as a challenger brand.
Okay.
We'll challenge and change that stereotype and that perception around consultants. And it's all centered in what I spoke about earlier around purpose and positive change.
Yeah.
So it was really good in terms of growing a business from scratch under Greg as the founder. What Mteto's brought into BSG is to say, we're not the challenger anymore. We're going to be the leader.
Okay.
And being the leader means that there's a different way of thinking about the market and our role and standards and what we do. So I think fundamentally that's been the headline. And it's centered in the right things. We help our clients achieve the right kind of change for the right reasons. We don't get involved in work just because it needs to be done unless we believe it's the right approach.
Okay.
And we don't see that happening everywhere. So we think if we do more of that, we'll bring about that positive change on a greater scale. And then Mteto's brought in growth strategies that then support how we make that a reality. And one of those has been BSG's history in those first 25 years was really about getting the job done. If we spend time with clients and said, what do you think of BSG? What do you value? Why have you used us? It's because we can rely on you, safe pair of hands. If you commit to this, I know it'll get done.
Okay.
But increasingly, as we build trust and credibility with the clients we're working with, we would be in positions where we'd be asked to actually advise around a piece of work and do some of the strategy associated with it. Mteto's brought that into BSG as a fundamental part of our growth strategy. In addition to executing strategy, we'll also help our clients to shape those strategies.
Okay.
And when you talk about the kind of change that we're discussing today, there's a digital enabled business future everybody wants to achieve, but often it's not clearly defined. So the elements that are enabling it and progressing in the background, but does the CEO and the executive team understand what does that mean their business is going to look like in 3 years' time?
Okay.
How their customers are going to experience it. So that advisory part has been also fundamental in terms of what Mteto has brought in from a strategy perspective. Most of our history and background was in banking and insurance. So part of what Mteto has brought into BSG is also to say that financial services is a highly competitive industry with high standards. Why hasn't BSG expanded into other industries?
Okay.
Because you've almost started in the most difficult place. And with his context and experience in telcos and technology and media, we've embarked on a cross-industry growth strategy.
Okay.
Because we can see that regardless of what industry a business is in, everybody knows there's value in the data and insights they have hidden or embedded in some cases within their organizations. And so everybody wants to get closer to their customers. Everybody wants to understand the market better. Everybody wants to be able to compete and grow. And data and insight embedded and used in a digital way is at the heart of it. So the things that we've helped banks and insurance companies to do, we can see are necessary and valuable in all organizations. Might have a slightly different approach around what you're trying to achieve, but the fundamental principles are the same. And then, along with it, another part of the growth strategy is to be the leader locally so that we can then expand and grow in a broader geographical sense.
Okay. So are you saying, am I hearing for the first time that there are plans to expand maybe to other African countries?
I think it's more...
Or globally?
Yeah, more globally. I mean, BSG, even before Mteta came into BSG, we've operated in other parts of the world. We've done work, especially with clients and businesses that are based in the UK. I think being specific around which markets to focus on and what kind of opportunities make sense to do that is a longer-term growth ambition for us to achieve. But centered in first and foremost being a leader locally, which then we know earns us the right to be able to take that globally.
Interesting. Thanks, Jurie. Maybe lastly, I understand BSG has got this graduate program. We were talking earlier about that my daughter is doing matric, although she's not like exactly a perfect fit, I think, maybe for you. Can you just tell us about the progress that you have made since launching this graduate program? I understand also there are also some bursaries that are on offer. Maybe there's someone who is watching who would want to be part of BSG group.
Definitely. So that's also been fundamental in BSG's history. and it's one of the core principles that Greg built BSG around. He'll talk about the Alex Ferguson Manchester United analogies.
Yeah.
You don't build a great team by poaching the top experienced talent and you see those are never the teams that win. Yes, you can bring in a few superstars to complement and so on, but if you're going to have a strong, sustainable culture of excellence, you need to nurture that talent from a very young age.
Okay.
And so Greg brought those same principles into BSG, identifying the universities, the kinds of programs, especially in information systems and computer science, that align to what we do from a business perspective. But I think even more importantly than that, the right kind of people. The core knowledge, skills, and abilities that make somebody a fit to evolve and grow a career in consulting and with BSG. Along with that was identifying that universities are also struggling to understand what's happening in the outside world.
Okay.
They've got to evolve their curriculum and prepare their students to have great lives after they leave university. And for that, they need input from industry around what's happening. So one of the early steps that happened, in addition to focusing on bringing great graduates into BSG, was also Greg founded advisory boards with a number of universities.
Okay.
And through that, also helped to bring industry knowledge and context from a broad range of businesses into those universities so that they can shape their curricula in line with the evolving needs and emerging trends in the market. So yeah, for all of our history, there's been a big focus on bringing graduates into BSG to start their careers and to grow from there. So there are two aspects. There's a graduate recruitment program, which is how we work with different universities. That's evolved with our bursary program to be very centered around students that we are supporting and undertaking their studies.
Okay.
It's another very clear focus in our growth strategy under Mteto is developing young talent.
Okay.
And so that bursary program, we've got around about 50 students that we are supporting and undertaking their studies. They came to BSG a couple of weeks ago because even if in a slightly different way, they're already part of BSG. And it was great to spend time with them. Similarly to seeing the interns that you've got with you here, it's it's such a great principle to identify that it's an opportunity to help somebody understand more about themselves and around the world, the world around them, because you're going through a stage of life where you're making important decisions and you want to try and do it with a little more perspective. So the graduate recruitment program and bursary program is for students, for those who are still studying.
Okay.
And then we've got a graduate development program. So once somebody joins BSG, it's how do we help somebody to start a career?
Okay.
It's holistic because we understand that it's a big life moment.
Yeah.
You remember the first day that you got paid to do work? Yeah. Everyone remembers it. So you then think about how do you help those individuals at that stage of their life build great personal skills first and foremost.
Okay.
Have that natural understand that the learning doesn't end when you leave university. It's a lifelong pursuit. So how do you adopt the right mindset around it? And a very important part of it is putting in place the foundational elements for a career, but most of them extend into a broader life sense. Communication, looking after yourself, presentation and facilitation, problem solving. All of those are foundational skills we develop with our people through that development program that are then a cornerstone for whatever direction their careers go after that.
Okay. So how can one apply and what should they, would you use a certain criteria when selecting these graduates?
Yes, we do. And all of that is available on our website. I think that, in terms of a career in BSG and the kind of work we do from a consulting and technology perspective, it does require certain foundational, learning while you're at university.
Okay.
And we focus on particular programs that are aligned to the work that we do, because that's how we feel that we can be most impactful in the contribution we make. And all of that information is also available on bsg.co.za.
Awesome.
But I think beyond that, we spend a lot of time at universities.
Is that okay?
Personally, I'm very involved with Rhodes and with Wits, and with the University of Pretoria. I was at Rhodes at the beginning of the year and spent time with a few of their classes. And one of the questions one of the observations I had is that the level of engagement and interest from the students is higher than I've ever seen before.
Is it okay?
No one missed the lecture.
Oh, that's it.
There was no kind of excuse not to be there.
Yeah.
And the same questions came up several times. And one of them was, what do I have to do to impress you?
Oh,
That's what they said. And my feedback to them was, don't do that. Because what you need to do is you need to be yourself.
Yeah.
And as soon as you're trying to impress somebody by trying to be something else, the worst thing is if you're successful. Because then you've got to continue to assume that approach, which is not the true, authentic you,
exactly.
For forever, or for as long as you need to. So along with the things that the criteria in terms of course and those kind of points, we look for people to be themselves. And where there's a connection with the things that we believe in and that are most important to us, that's why we talk about these things. Because when that resonates with somebody and that's what they want to be part of, that's absolutely fundamental.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jurie. I'm actually glad that I brought our interns to listen and watch this interview. I'm sure they have taken, a few, words from this interview. We really appreciate you coming to ITWeb TV and hope to be talking to you again soon. And please send my regards to Mteto.
Absolutely, Admire. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here. I know you did ask your interns if they had any questions.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
I'm Suku Kosa, one of the interns in journalism. And my question for the SG was that, so as I heard that you were talking about engaging mostly in universities, I wanted to know what happens with those graduates who did IT and computer science who are at home. Some of them been home for 3 years or 2 years. How do they know that there's this program that's happening, and how do you reach out to them and help them?
Sure. So I think, firstly, very well done to both of you for being proactive and taking the opportunity to learn through an internship.
Thank you.
So I think that BSG is one of many organizations that are focused on trying to address the challenge of youth unemployment, developing scarce skills, helping young people to achieve their potential. I think it's important to get a perspective around what are the different organizations that are looking to solve for that in different ways, and where would that be a match for you in terms of what you've studied and what you want to achieve. Because we can help some people, but given our size and scale, we can't help everybody. But that's where there's some really fantastic initiatives. Mteto himself is involved in Collective X, which is one of the organizations that's focused on building up skills and creating opportunity. Yes is another one.
Yeah.
And it's because I think as a country, there's a very clear understanding that our youth are our future. If we're not developing the right skills and abilities and access to those skills, but also access to employment, that's a serious risk to our future as a country. So I think it depends, based on what you've studied, based on the kind of career that you want to embark on. I would say regardless of what that career is, some of the things we spoke about today from a technology perspective, even if you haven't studied computer science or information systems, understanding the potential of those technologies, how you can use them, is going to put you ahead of people who haven't done that. And so it'll give you an advantage, while at the same time probably helping you to access some of those opportunities more quickly and effectively.
I'm from Asia, also an intern, and I have I'm curious, as BSG, how do you guys use AI, like, within BSG?
Yeah, so again, great question. I'd say, like, broadly we apply it in the same way that the businesses, our clients are looking to use the technology.
Mm-hmm.
So firstly, how do you use it to free people up to do more advanced tasks? We use Copilot because we've got Microsoft suite of products, Teams, various other solutions. One of the great use cases for Copilot is when you have a Teams call, when you have a meeting, is to record it through Copilot, so that it summarizes, well, it creates a record of what was discussed if you need to refer to it later on. You can share that with somebody who can't be in the meeting, and therefore you're making it easier for people to access content even if they can't be there in person. And also you can summarize the actions that come out of that. But very fundamentally in our business, given generative AI, a lot of the analysis and research that would otherwise be part of what our analysts do is now automated. So in that, again, similar to what I shared with Admire earlier, it creates, I suppose, a risk and an opportunity. Because if the technology can do something that you as an individual can do, you need to be able to do something else. And so with that is a natural evolution in using AI for ourselves. Part of it is also how do we equip our consultants to be able to use that technology effectively to add more value in the projects we're working with and with our clients and businesses that we engage with.
Okay.
But it's no one answer because the technology is also evolving. So that's where the natural curiosity, the critical thinking, and the desire to do more, those are the fundamentals that go along with it, because otherwise it's always somebody telling you what to do, as opposed to you leading yourself and undertaking it. But yeah, main use cases there around anything that is manual that can be automated. It should be, it must be, because that frees you up to spend your time on the critical thinking, the judgment steps I spoke about earlier. And we'll continue to evolve how we use it as a technology to support us. And that also then helps to equip our people with the right skills and experience to do that with the businesses we work with.
Thank you so much, Jurie, for giving our interns some, advice. I'm sure they've learned a lot. I know it was impromptu, but
it was wonderful spending time with them.
Yes, I was actually impressed with them as well, and you also, just talking to them as well. I'm sure it has inspired them to want to become like journalists. Yeah, maybe Jurie, in closing, what would you want to say?
I said to you earlier, I really like the list of books you've got here. And one of them, Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow, I actually referred to in an executive session with one of our client teams a couple of months ago.
Okay.
And in a way, it encapsulates a lot of what we spoke about today. Because the human mind can think really quickly. Somebody throws a ball, you can evade it and take this quick action almost instinctively, but also do these things really slowly. Read War and Peace. Construct a building over years.
Yeah.
That's the thinking slow part. So with the technology that's available now, it's a combination of those two approaches. The thinking slow is before you jump into it and think it'll solve everything and get excited or distracted about it.
Yeah.
The thinking slow part is be clear around what's most important. When that's in place, then the thinking fast comes in.
Okay.
How do we set off in that direction? How do we understand what we've learned? How do we incorporate that feedback to do more, to do better? And with that, I think there's a cultural change that's happening across how business gets done. But it requires embracing the fact that we don't know everything. And as soon as we learn something new, we must be open and vulnerable to say, this is where we're at. How do we use it? And the more we do it, I think the more successful we'll be in using that technology for good.
Interesting. I think, Jurie, you are now challenging me to read that.
You should definitely read that book.
I'll definitely give it a read. Thank you so much, Jurie, for coming to our studio. Thank you so much for watching this episode of ITWeb TV. Today we are talking to Jurie Schoeman, who is the managing partner at BSG. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and thank you so much for watching.